Good. All right. Welcome. Thank you, everybody. We'll call the Policy and Finance Committee meeting to order. I guess we don't have to call a roll. We're all here, three of us, right? 1, 2, 3. That's good. All right. Do you want to approve the minutes from last December? You weren't here, so I don't. Anna, want to offer a motion?
Yep, absolutely.
And I will second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, nice and easy. All right, you now need to elect a 2022 committee chair. I will leave that to the body.
Thank you, Chair. I vote to re-elect Spencer Duncan to chair the committee.
I second that.
I won't second myself. That never looks awesome. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right, well, thank you very much. I will do my best, and if not, you will tell me, which is just fine. That's your job. All right. Why we're all really here today. Let's get this started. As we know, we have been tasked with taking a look at the Arpa application process, what that thing should look like, might look like, what our input, suggestions, and some sort of draft might look like, which we will then take to the full governing body at some point for discussion and consideration, which I'm sure they will then have lots of input to send back to us to work on that again. I think what we'll do first is we have been provided with some samples, some various samples, and after we've gone through that review and questions, I will give everybody my vision of what we can do next, and then we can see if that is in sync with anyone else's or not, and go from there. So, thank you. Steve, is that your function today?
Yeah, just Deputy Mayor Kalea here is present. She's put together the easy, medium, and hard versions. Different levels of how much detail would be needed. I've also provided you with a copy of the Spark Grant format, but I think it's our opinion that we can modify this to any way you wish.
Okay.
It was our understanding that you didn't want anything too complex, so that moderate route might be the way to start.
So what was sample 1? That's the business application. Is that one we've used for something else currently, or is that one we've?
So, I pulled that off of an application that I did in my internship in Casa Grande. So we have
Okay.
this city has not used it.
Okay.
Casa Grande, Arizona has.
Okay, same with sample 2.
Yeah. So they were all based off that harder one.
Okay,
So.
okay. And then the third sample we have is who was this from?
That was the easiest, I believe.
Was that the state of Kansas?
Is that this?
It just says ARPA Small Business Relief Grant Application.
So that's probably the easier, or
Okay.
the less complicated one.
Okay, and then sample 4 is the one that Spark used recently to do their, okay. Okay, so those are 4. And then I know we talked at one point, and maybe this includes it, of looking at our social service grant application and incorporating parts of it or using it also as a template.
Chair, I think we looked at it, and it was my understanding from our conversations on that Saturday session that overall it was thought that it was too complex and that we wanted something simpler, so I think we just modified from there.
Okay, okay. Any questions to this point or comments? Yep, Councilwoman Valdez-Alcala.
Yeah, I think that, well, I don't know if we all agreed that the one that we use for social service grants would be too cumbersome. I mean, it is pretty lengthy, and you do have to know how to maneuver that grant process. There is a training component that comes along with it, but I think the most important thing that we do need to remember to keep looking at is the outcomes. I know that was mentioned by a number of council people, how important that should be, and also to make sure that we're not having a redundancy of everybody asking for similar amounts that are going to be doing the same thing. So that's just going to be on us, I would imagine, not outside of the application process.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about the outcomes piece, and I don't know, outside of tracking it once they start, I mean, are there things we think we can put in an application or a requirement, at least as part of that? Do any of these samples have any sort of reporting requirements included, or at least heads up? We would talk, obviously that wouldn't be part of the application, but at least some understanding that if you're submitting this application, we may have some reporting requirements, and they are whatever we come up with here.
I think it was our belief that once these were awarded, that there would be reporting follow-up requirements, but that I thought it was my understanding that you basically wanted something fairly simple for initial consideration, and that there might even be a follow-up after that once the pool was narrowed down.
Okay. Did you have a question, Councilwoman Nager?
Yeah, I did have something to say, Chair. Thank you. From looking at this, the simple, medium, and hard grant samples that you've provided, thank you for providing those. I think something between that medium and hard. So we're getting a lot of information from people right off the bat, just to clarify and make sure that people are coming to the right place to begin with. I think maybe the simple is a bit too straightforward and would require more of us weeding people out, which is just a nasty process on both sides. And so I think just to go ahead and make sure that we have people who will be able to provide the reporting that we need, kind of that medium to hard application looks better to me. And to make sure that, people are set up and with the correct expectations. I think it would be good to have in the application that this is going to be a continuing process. You're not just going to come ask us for money and to be done. I think to set that expectation right off the bat will also help to kind of make sure that we're bringing in a good pool of applicants who are going to be able to maximize the effect of these dollars.
Yep, I would agree.
I don't know if there's the appetite for this or not, but I don't know if you were considering, Chair or Councilwoman Nager, of just like, we pick from either 1, 2, 3, or 4, period, stop, or the consideration of, I think that 4 is a good starting point. I believe for our due diligence as a committee that we should consider looking at the SSG, not to take it at 100%, because I don't think that would be necessary. However, that was worked on for, I think, at least 2 or 3 years. United Way helped very much, with that. And there were missing gaps that we had, that we knew that we had as a city. So I don't know if, we could effectively do this in one meeting. Maybe we'll find that it's not needed. My hunch is there may be a couple of things that we can bring into it, though, into this number 4.
So here was the offer I was willing to make today. Do the work for you folks with your input and then bring a template back to our next meeting. Getting feedback and whatever ideas we had today, my thought was to take that, sit down, set up a meeting, sit down, and actually come up with what our application would look like. So then we have a working template to say, this is our application. We culled it from what we talked about in this meeting, the process we liked. If we meet next week, if you have ideas between now and then, send them to us, and then we will try to make that so that at our next meeting we can sit down and say, okay, we don't know if this is the best or the worst, but would be our application as of right now. Let's go from there, and that would give us an actual conversation piece to say, why is this missing? Why did we word it this way? Are you sure that's what you meant? As opposed to the conceptual concept where we have to start with today. So that was gonna be my offer today, is to do that work so that we could get that done and have something next week, late next week or something, to send out to everybody and say, okay, here's our rough draft.
Okay.
What do you like? What don't you like? What's missing? And between now and then, have you and Councilwoman Nager send us, here's what I think should be on it, here's what I don't think should be on it. Why haven't we added this, or we should add that? And then we can incorporate all that and see what we come up with.
I do have one more question about
Yeah,
that.
please.
Is as we look at doing this application process, are we going to wait until we've agreed on an application before we decide if this pot of money that we have is going to go like for economic revitalization? I was looking at the samples that it used
Right.
here, health and education. I mean, I think that we heard when the social service agency spoke up how much, and I would actually call it desperate need that there is out there for social services. And $10 million will go really quick. And I know that there might be some expectations for utilization of the funds outside of the social service realms. I don't think we really talked about that, but when is the time that we will?
So my thought, do you have a, Councilwoman Nager, did you want to say something? Okay, my thought was this, because this conversation came up at our big meeting, and I feel like it was left dangling. So sometimes you just got to grab that and make your own decisions. So I think we can do that. I think this process would be better if we at least also, along with this application, took some baseline suggestions from us as to exactly what you're talking about. We think the criteria or the these categories should be included in this process. If you like that, great. If you don't, that's fine. But again, I think if we just go to the full council and say, who do you want to qualify for? We're going to be right back where we started, where we had that meeting. And so I think part of our process when we take that application should also be, we've had some discussions and recommend that these should be some qualifiers for this grant and discuss. And then that, again, gives everyone a baseline to work from so we can actually move forward instead of having the same conversations over and over again.
Right.
So yes, I think that's a good idea. And I think we can do some of that because, again, we're not going to have all the final decisions anyway. That's going to be up to the full body. So I would be on board with having those conversations. Did you have a...
Chair,
Steve?
I want to be respectful of your time, and what I think I'm hearing is a couple things here. One is the SSG might be a good foundation, and then adding in some of the Spark type stuff. If it's agreeable to you, we certainly can take the SSG, modify it to Spark, and get it to you for review. I want to be respectful of your time, so we're not tying
Well, we
you up.
can, but I'd like to just set up a meeting
Gotcha.
next week and sit there and work through it with everybody. So,
Great.
because there will be some things I get comments from council members and committee members that say, make sure this is in there. And that'll save us time in the long run if I can incorporate them in the room, and then you're not doing the document 4 times.
I'm just trying to take care of you.
No, it's not a big deal. It's just time, it's just time. So that'd be the step with the application. If we use, does that sound, we take those 2 templates, work from that, give you folks this week to get some feedback to me on things you want to like, don't like, or like included. And then I think the next thing we should have a conversation about at this next meeting, and I'll tell you why next meeting, about the criteria is, I believe, whether it's in the next 3 weeks, 30 days, whatever timeline you folks are good with, I would like us to schedule a public input session at this committee level, not at the council level, so that the public can come in at an hour they can come, 5, 6 o'clock at night, whenever you think is the best time, and let them talk to us about those 2 things. We think the application should look like this, and we think the criteria, this is who we think should qualify. And then I think we're in a better position to have that conversation, having heard from the community and given them several opportunities. They can come to these meetings too, but make sure we set a non-middle of the day meeting for that feedback, to provide that input.
That sounds really prudent. I like that.
I agree.
So then the question is, when would you like to have that meeting? There's no good time, I know. But again, I think it needs to be an evening meeting. That's more accessible for people who, for the most part. And I'll leave it.
Like, Mondays are not good for me because of NIAs, not
Right.
Tuesdays, not Fridays. So I would prefer either a Wednesday or a Thursday, if that would work for you guys.
If it's an evening, I can make that work.
Would we like to look at, let's see, what's this, the first?
Yeah.
We could either, oh, well, the 17th's no good. That's St. Patrick's Day. That seems like we'd be. Is the following week okay? Is that too late for everybody? I don't think so, but the week of March 21st?
That's good.
That's good.
Okay, and which nights would you prefer? Thursday or?
Either Wednesday or Thursday, whatever's convenient for Hannah.
Yeah, either one of those will work for me.
Flip a coin, Councilwoman Nager. It's your call, Wednesday or Thursday?
It's going to be Wednesday.
Okay, Wednesday the 23rd. Is there anything we don't know about on the bigger calendar? I don't think so, but what do we think is a good time? 5:30, 6, 6:30?
Let's do 6 to allow people to finish up at work, and if people do have less traditional 9 to 5 jobs, they have the opportunity.
That works great. And then if we could get staff to put together basically a press release letting the world know that, and I can work, again, the goal to keep it to those 2 topics. It'll be what it'll be, and that's fine. But the focus of that meeting will be for people to provide input on the application itself and what the criteria of qualification should be. And then that gives people 3 weeks to let us get the word out that we're here to hear them. Because then that gives us some time to schedule a meeting pretty soon after that to ideally take something to the council at one of those April meetings, which keeps us moving. Mm-hmm. I'll throw out another question, and as we listen to comments over the next couple weeks, but I do think it will need to be addressed. One of the topics that came up was a threshold of if individual organizations had received other monies, whether it's CARES Act money or other COVID funds. And again, I think that was left dangling a little bit. I think we should probably drive some of that a little bit, whether that's, nope, if you received $1, you're out, or whether there's a threshold if you received X amount of dollars or a percentage of your program. I don't know what that answer is, but I do think that that's going to have to be on that application, which means we're going to have to address it and come up with some determination of what we think is acceptable or livable or one. I mean, I'll be honest, from my perspective, I think it's tough to just say if you got $1 or anything, you're out, because if you have a huge program and you got one of those $1,000 grants and it's a $100,000 program, that's a very small drop in your big pool, right? And so it's a little unfair maybe to disqualify those groups. But I think that's an issue we are going to have to address through this process.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably put that on the application with a couple options and then see what, or a blank space for $1 amount.
Right.
Then we can,
Yeah, because it might be smartest to go ahead and have people apply, and then we kind of see what that threshold is instead of just putting an arbitrary number down and then ruling people out who could really benefit from these funds and haven't gotten that same bounce back from other sources.
Yeah, and you're right. It may be as simple as that, as just saying, have you received it and what's that amount? Not necessarily a disqualifier, but it gives us something to compare it to. Yeah, that's a good point. There was one other thing, but I didn't write it down, so of course I forgot it. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right, so we have a plan, right? We got a plan? Actually, a real plan. I think it'll work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments or questions? Just a reminder, I'll send an email out to you too, but like I said, if maybe by Monday or something, I'll schedule a meeting for next week. We could have any additional thoughts you have about the application, things you want or don't want on it, but we'll use those two as a template. I will have Liz send out something to set up a next meeting. We'll look at the timeline of whether it's before we have comments or after, probably. Late at the end of the month. We can still send you the rough draft of that first application to look at and provide comments on before then.
Okay.
I will tell the public of the 2 people watching probably that this Saturday is my first Saturday of the month public office hours, so it's a good time if you have thoughts on this issue. You know where I'll be for 2 hours in Fairlawn Plaza behind the kiosk. You can come have a conversation with me there also.
Are you hiding behind?
No, I stand up straight most of the time. It's a pretty high kiosk, so if I do sit down in a chair, it's like just the top of my head, and people wonder what the heck that guy's doing back there. But I do try to stand up straight so they can see me. for the 2 people that come see me there too every week, every month. It's good. So I'll throw that out as an opportunity to come have a conversation with me. For staff, was there anything else on this issue you wanted us to address today? Or?
No, sir.
Okay. Council members, anything else on this issue before we move on to the very short next issue? The next thing on the agenda is governing body rules and procedures. There's nothing for you today. Why I put this on here was to give you a notice. We've had 2 council members send me, when we approved the most recent update at the end of last year, we talked about how it's a living, breathing document and it has changes that ebb and flow. There were a couple pretty technical things that were brought to me that some council members would like to see changed. They just sent them to me in the last week and a half. I'm going to send those to Amanda for legal to clean them up, and then we will bring some sort of document with those changes for us to take a look at and consider. None of them were major. They were all pretty small. But try to get it cleaned up as much as possible. But I wanted to put it on the agenda today so I could give you a heads up on it.
Okay.
With that, I guess we are concluded because we don't need to schedule the next meeting today. But again, if staff would work on a press release at some point to put out on our meeting on the whenever we said that was. The 23rd, 6 o'clock. I don't want to get it wrong. Anyone have anything else?
Do not.
All right. Short meeting, but I do feel pretty confident that we are going to move forward now. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.